one-stop shop for great wrestling. It's the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Ray Russell brings a host of great shows right to your device. There's the Wrestling Memory Grenade, Regional Wrestling, the Wrestling Stoop with Bob Roop, the Amazing Puro Academy Show, Retro Wrestling Review with Gene Jackson, Dave Dynasty's long-running hit, Wrestling Nostalgia, Monday Warfare, Raw vs. Nitro, the hilarious Other Ship podcast, and a whole lot more. Great shows and great guests, but where do you find all this stuff? Really simple. Try logging on to WrestleCopia.com. As I like to say, it's your one-stop shop for great wrestling memories. Hey everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Outdated Wrestling Hour. On this episode, Bob welcomes the guys from the Mixtapes podcast, Eric Stangeland and Mike Moots. And together they're going to talk about the history of wrestling music. But I know an obscure song from wrestling back in the 60s. Yeah, it's wrestler Betty Boyce. And she made a song all of her own and made a record of it called Rockin' Around the Ring. And I'm going to play it for you right here. And I just got to go and get my guitar. Whoops. It's the Outdated Wrestling Hour. A fresh pack of Darios. Hello again, everybody. My name is Bob Smith, and welcome to the Outdated Wrestling Hour. How are you tonight? I'm the old PWI guy. I worked for PWI back in the 80s and 90s, and I'm very old now, but I still have Tony Schiavone's hair. Don't you think?
Now that you mention it.
I have the same haircut as Tony.
A little bit Schiavone-ish.
Yeah. And here's my co-host. Your name in the stat box is Taco.
Today, I had my Sirius on. I was listening to 80s on 8, and the song Puttin' on the Ritz came on. Is that the name of it? You remember that song from the 80s by Taco?
Yes. I'm trying not to insult you. That's the problem.
Yeah, that insult me.
No, I'm not a pop guy. I mean, go back to the 70s with pop music, right? You remember some of that crap? Billy, don't be a hero. I mean, and back then, AM radio, folks, you can imagine something called the pocket transistor radio that would play music.
Mm-hmm.
Gather around, kids. I'll pop some corn. They would play that, and then they'd follow that with a whole lot of Love by Zeppelin, and then they would play Conway Twitty, and then they would play That's the Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia, and then they would play Badfinger. You see, AM radio was a complete melting pot. Now, in those days, I am nostalgic for, because you never knew what you're going to hear when you flipped your radio on.
Right.
Did you have a radio experience like that as young as you are, you young punk?
Growing up in the 80s in New York, big sort of like top 40 stations that they would play everything current. So that's what my sister and I used to listen to primarily. And then, as I got older, don't get me wrong, I still love that stuff from that decade. But then as I got older, I really started getting into rock. And then I discovered the Stones, and I discovered a lot of the classic rock bands like Aerosmith and Queen and bands like that, Van Halen. So that's when my love of that started. But yeah, absolutely. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, my sister and I, my parents eating dinner. We would have one of those little radios that we thought were so cool. We would have the radio sitting there on the table, and we'd have it on, and we'd be playing, Z100 or PLJ, something like that.
That was FM radio. I grew up with AM. From upstate New York, we could pick up the legendary WABC.
Right.
77 and listen to Cousin Brucey and all those guys. And most of my rock and roll incubation came from AM radio, a pocket radio. One day for Christmas, my father bought me and my brother each this, what looked like a shortwave radio, but they were these like $10 Chinese brand of, several band radios, but all we ended up listening to was AM because the FM wouldn't come in on the damn thing. You used what you had back then, but that didn't make you dislike the music anymore. We didn't feel like we were missing anything. We just loved the songs. And then the songs we really liked, off to the local James Way, where
Mhm.
for 77 cents you could buy a single, the 45 RPM records. Those were the days, my friend. Those were the days. And you
Yeah.
didn't feel like you were missing anything.
But for music, no, it was,
No,
it was FM.
it
Yeah.
was past that time, and I think one of the great tragedies in New York radio is the sad thing is that WABC, the old rock and roll station, is now just a talk station, and I have no interest in that type of thing, and I don't listen.
There you go.
Okay. But, we're talking about music for a reason, guy, because today we have the 2 gentlemen from the Mixtape Show on, and we're gonna be talking about wrestling music. So there's our segue into my discussion with you, Joe, and then after this, we'll talk about a little current wrestling. If you had well, first of all, did you like the fact that there was such a thing as ring music that started in the '80s? And secondly, if you had a favorite ring music from any performer, what would it be?
Oof. Well, the first question is easy. The second one is a little tougher. As far as if I liked it, yes, I was full-fledged into that. I know a lot of the old school thinking might be that was part of the business that changed, maybe not for the better from a lot of people's viewpoints. I liked it. I mean, that you have to remember too that that's when I really first heavily got into wrestling. So it was during that era where everybody was coming down with music, at that point. I, as a young kid, I thought it was great. It was sort of like almost like a rock star type environment, and they'd come down and the fans would cheer and you'd hear the first few notes of that song. So for me, I really did embrace it. I really did like it. And I could see though how people that maybe were from maybe a bit of a prior generation sort of didn't care for it as much because they felt it was sort of taking the focus away from maybe the in-ring, from the wrestling. But I like both. I like the whole production of it. Then again, I do like how the music was there. They would get to the ring, and we've talked about this before, and then they would get in and wrestle. Whereas I think now it sort of just goes on and on. The ring entrances might be longer than the match themselves nowadays, but that wasn't the case back then.
Do you have a favorite? Is there a song, an entrance with music? You're kinda shaking your head, no.
I am because I don't know if I have a favorite. I'd have to really think about
But
that.
then you don't have a favorite, then we have to think about it. If it didn't spring to your mind,
No,
that's the thing. I appreciate that because you're not giving me a BS answer.
no,
I
I'm not.
don't wanna force one out of you either. Me, I don't have a favorite. Actually, the one favorite I had I'm gonna talk about because it was so bad it was good, I'm gonna talk about in the meat of the show, and I don't wanna telegraph that,
Okay,
now here's the thing, and I say this later in the show too. As far as the advent of wrestling music, yeah, I'm from the era where the commercial would be over and you see the ring announcer in the ring and all the wrestlers are already in the ring.
sure.
He'd announce team A, they announce team B, here's your referee, ding ding. 35 seconds after you come back from the commercial break, they were wrestling. I will always prefer that. I don't care. I'm a fossil. I'd rather see the action than a bunch of mic work and a bunch of preening.
I could respect that. Like I said, that's why I prefaced what I said with, I do understand that way of thinking. To me, I think it's just because that's really when I first got into it. I think that's why I kind of revere it as much as I do. And I have good memories of it.
Yeah,
That were current songs. Then there was the music that was created solely
right,
for the
right.
wrestler. So that's another thing. Is
Yeah,
that, do you like a song just because you love that song, or do you like it
because
in
you
the
like the wrestler.
context of the wrestler? Yeah.
Right, exactly. We get into all that later on in the show. I will say this, what slipped my mind when I was talking to our guest was that around 81 or 82, I think Hogan went to Memphis under the name Hulk Hogan. And there is film on YouTube of this where and Lawler comes out in his king outfit on a horse, and this big orchestral theme starts up da 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 da, like he's a gladiator on his horse coming to the ring. Why they went this far on this particular match, I don't know, but that's one of the earliest. I still look at 84 or so with Michael Hayes as being the advent of the
Yeah.
song intended to be for the wrestler because he sang it.
Right. Yep.
Which, by the way, that whole crew that came up with it made a lot of wrestling music, but that's the one that really hit the spot. I mean, it really perpetuated the Freebirds' growth as a superstar team back then.
It did, and it's a good song too. It's catchy, and I got into it when he used to come out to that. I always thought it was pretty cool. And hey, look, if anyone's gonna have it or sort of make it famous, it's got to be Michael Hayes. I mean, he was picture perfect for it.
Yeah. So those were the days. But now we'll go to today, or a couple weeks ago as this comes out. Talk a little bit. I know we're going to be the last podcast to talk about. Let's talk about the Rumble. I'll cut right to the chase. Gunther did it again. Those Gunther matches are absolutely great. AJ Styles. Oh man, I go way back with him when he was with a company called NWA Wildside with short hair. And they pushed him as their main guy even way back when. I can't remember the year it was sold. And for some reason, that's out of Georgia. We had a cable system on our cable that got that show, NWA Wildside. It was on at like 3:00 in the morning on Saturday nights. Because I'm a wrestling idiot, I stayed up to watch it into the middle of the night each week. It wasn't really a great federation, very small. And no matter how good the matches were, you could see the crowd was like 26 people. Literally. I mean, it was just nobody watching this stuff. But a lot of people came through there as rookies. One of them was AJ Styles. And you could tell right from then he was a big deal. I see people on the internet going, well, now he's going to go to TNT or AEW. No, he's not. He's done.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's done. I know the speculation was because he didn't put his gloves in the ring. He looked like he was going to put him down, and then he put him back on. But nah, to me, I think people are reading way too much into that. From what it sounds like, maybe, I'm sure he'll have a part in wrestling, whether it's behind the scenes, maybe coaching and things like that, which I'm sure he'd do an awesome job. But as far as going to another company, I would doubt it. There's no reason for him at this point to do that. The guy's had some career. I'm sure he's financially set. He's up there now considering an age. So yeah, I don't believe that for a second.
No, I don't take any credence in that. I want to hear him say it first.
Yeah.
Everything else is just speculation. He turned into a really, really good pro wrestler. I compare him and Rob Van Dam a lot. Only because Van Dam preceded him, but I think in the beginning their styles were really high flying and death defying, but then they honed it up. As they aged, their styles kind of melded into a traditional wrestling style, as well as like jumping off the top rope. What was his move where he kind of propels himself to the top rope? What is that? It's a flying clothesline, right? Really nice stuff. And it looks so smooth. Everything he did looks smooth. Yeah, I followed him in TNA when I was watching TNA too, and that was it was a break for him. I like the way he climbed the ladder. He climbed all the way up to the top rung.
If anything, Styles sort of even surpassed Rob Van Dam, and nothing against Van Dam, but I think Styles is one of the premier wrestlers of the modern era. He had it all. I mean, he was great wrestler, great moves, but he didn't go too crazy with the moves. It's not like he did unrealistic things, but he was still exciting, high flying. He was able to work the mat. He was a good promo. Not a lot of people talk about that, his mic skills, but he was fine. No, I never had a problem with him. It's pretty realistic. For me, my first exposure to him was really TNA. Some of the matches that he had in TNA were some of the greatest stuff. I mean, that's when TNA was at its hottest. And, those matches with Christopher Daniels, that was a great feud.
Even TNA, though, made people go through goofy angles and stuff like that. They couldn't help themselves. They couldn't just throw a match in the ring. They had to shroud it in some kind of mini controversy or something like that.
Yep.
And let's get to that match against Gunther. How far are they going to take this? He's already been world champ, or he's come and gone with that twice at this point. But now he's retiring wrestlers.
Right.
And how far can they go with this? What's the end game in this? Are they going to make him the company standard bearer? Is he the wrong type of person to be the company standard bearer? Personally, I wouldn't mind. I think the fans would revolt. There's two reasons why he gets booed so vociferously. Number one, their favorites ain't coming back like Cena and like that. Number two, he's the antithesis of what they usually push. A big, long, lean guy who isn't particularly handsome, that type of thing. They don't get pushed. All the recent champions have been kind of good looking.
Yeah.
Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns is a handsome man. You know what I'm saying? They have that. Some people think CM Punk is too, those types. Seth Rollins. Gunther looks like Killer Kowalski.
He does, yeah.
So, how far will they go? This is a fascinating question.
And I will say this about Gunther is that we both, think he's great wrestler, great gimmick, everything. But isn't it funny now looking back at the match with Cena, there was all this uproar about Cena tapped and, Cena shouldn't have lost and this and that. But I really have to say, I like this long-term thing they're doing with him. I like that it started with Goldberg, even though it wasn't as high profile. He got rid of, Goldberg's done. Cena, he retired Cena. Now he retired Styles. I don't know if it's going to continue with the retiring aspect. There's all these rumors about Chris Jericho coming in maybe in a retirement and others, but who knows? But the bottom line is, hey, look, he just retired, so to speak, quote unquote, retired 3 different big name wrestlers. And I think it's a cool gimmick, especially that these guys aren't coming back, which it doesn't look like any of the 3 really are. I think it's great. I think he gets tremendous heat. I like what they're doing with it. I really do.
Here's where this is good, particularly after the Cena match. This level of fan outrage is very rare these days.
Right.
When he came to Raw after the Cena match, he could barely get a word out. The booing was so loud and the catcalls and everything else was overwhelming. That's old school. That's 70s stuff. That's how people used to react. Luckily they don't throw things toward the ring anymore. You know what kind of heat that is? It's NWO heat. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Remember how the NWO started and people were pelting him in the ring with all kinds of debris? Real heat?
It's heat, right. It's heat that, like you said, it doesn't get generated that often anymore.
No, it doesn't.
And it's heat where the heel is actually, believe it or not, hated, where the fans aren't wanting to high five him and they think it's cool that he's doing all these things. No, the people really don't like him. And that's what they're supposed to be doing. They're not supposed to be heels where they're getting high fives and, they're laughing with the fans, things like that. No, they're actually getting heat, which is what is supposed to be done to draw money, right? The heel and the baby face. I think it's great.
But here's the other thing too. Cena had his year-long retirement tour. Now, AJ was supposed to have that same thing. And it's the beginning of the year and he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So there's another reason the fans were upset. I think a lot of them really thought, well, we're going to go see him on his year-long retirement tour. When he comes to town, we'll see him for the last time. And now they can't. Think about that. I think it's fabulous booking. I think it's off the scale good.
Right. I was just going to say, and that's cool too, because it's not so cliche where it's like, oh, he's going to have a full year just like Cena and you're going to get to see him and all. No, he wanted to be done. He wanted whatever it was, 10 years, I think, from the Rumble, from when he first debuted, whatever it was. He decided this was his last match and they did it. They went through with it. No big, long goodbye like Cena. And again, I like that they did it with Cena. That's fine. But it doesn't have to be the same for him. It could be different. And that's what they did. So I think it's really cool. It was a good match. Both guys did really well. I had no complaints about it at all. I had no complaints about the what did you feel about the entire show as a whole?
It was a good show. Not a lot of nonsense. It's the kind of show I like. Just get in there and mix it up. And that's basically what the show was all the way through. It was good.
Yeah, I liked it too. I liked that, it was only the 4 matches. Obviously, 2 of them were really long, but it just really went quickly. It was a good flow, even though it was a long show. I thought both Rumbles were really good this year. They had some good spots.
I like the Rumble. You know what I miss? Old school battle royals. They don't do those anymore, where everybody's in the ring at once.
You don't see those too often anymore,
they've been replaced by this format, yeah. I used to like them. You know what? When they came to town in Albany, I used to always try to see a battle royal. I loved them. Look, 20 guys in the ring, Granted, in Albany, only 4 of them were stars, but still. Frankie Williams, I didn't really need to see fly over the top rope, but that's what you got, so.
Right.
That's really true. Let me talk a little bit about my favorite thing in wrestling these days, the internet wrestling community.
Uh-oh.
I read this line yesterday. Did you see all those empty seats at the Royal Rumble? This is unacceptable. Wait a minute. Hold the phone. This is unacceptable? You mean to tell me your enjoyment of a card rests on how many people were in the stands? Figure that out. Make it make sense, Joe. Does that make any sense?
No, but I didn't see specifically people saying it was, to me, it's more of just
one person did it. One is more than enough. We'll put it that way.
Well, to me, it's the back and forth, though. You've seen these, right? After every big show where whether it's AEW, WWE, the fans showing different angles from the arena saying, look at this whole row is empty. Like, oh, the WWE is going down. They're not getting fans anymore. Same thing with AEW. They do it after big AEW shows. Look at this section of the arena. Why was nobody there? I don't know what it is. I guess it's just like a tribalism thing where fans of one promotion want to make it look like that promotion is not drawing crowds, when to me, it just seems like it's so weird, like why people even would care about this stuff. Since when do we care about, whether or not a seat is filled?
You ever go to a Saturday matinee when you were a kid? You ever go to the movies? right?
Sure.
Back when I was a kid, I saw a lot of movies every weekend. And I'll tell you what, I never looked in the paper to see the box office results. You know why? They didn't print them. We got along for decades without knowing how much people made on things. Now we're judging if something's good by its dollar popularity. Bourgeois,
Right.
as Felix Unger would say. There is absolutely no correlation between something that sells out being good or bad. It makes no sense.
Yeah. So I did see one comment that somebody made about the Rumble because of the neon lights, or the lights that were on the seat.
Lighting. Yeah.
The lighting, yeah, that was on each seat, I guess.
Mhm.
And it made it look like all the seats were empty. So someone was like, "Oh, whoever came up with this gimmick for that arena, they're going to get fired tomorrow. Look at this," or this and that. It's like, and then of course that's going to just get 10, 20, 30, 50 comments from that person. Yeah, what an idiot. Who did that? Whereas, is anyone even talking about the match?
Yeah, the match. Yeah, it's the match. You know what? And if I went to an event and it's half sold out, more tickets for me. I am not yeah, right. Oh, look, those are empty. I'll go. I've done that. Have you done it? I've done it.
Yeah,
You ever go
yeah.
to an
I don't
arena
I don't
event?
like doing it that much. I always
No, I feel a little sheepish.
Yeah, me too.
If anybody out there is going to WrestleMania, get a hold of me. I'll put you in the show. I want to know why. All right, it's in Vegas this year. If you got WrestleMania tickets, come on the show. I'm serious. I want to get your perspective on why you would spend that much money and where you're sitting and if you've done it before. In fact, if you've been to previous WrestleManias, come on the show. You know where I am, outdatedwrestling@gmail.com. Come on the show, talk to me and Joe, and we'll just I want to know the mindset of today's fan and why you would do that.
Or even better yet, if you're planning on going to WrestleMania next year in Saudi Arabia.
Is it Saudi Arabia next year?
Yes, it is.
Ooh.
Yes, it is. So the Rumble was sort of a precursor this year to WrestleMania next year.
Wow. I'm not even keeping up with that stuff anymore like I used to. You know why? I need my rest, young man. The other day, I stayed up to 5:00 in the afternoon. You know what I'm saying? I'm really overdoing it. Now that I'm retired, you know what? I have new avocations like snoring. I find that's very, very relaxing. You know what else I do when I'm old? Oatmeal. You know, the choppers. You know how it goes. But anyway, I'm not even getting any laughs out of Joe this time. My comic edge isn't what it used to be.
Yeah, I'm smiling. I'm laughing internally.
I'm not.
No, man. Hey, look, I'm an early bird too, man. These days I can't even. It's hard for me to stay up late. I work earlier hours now at my job, like a half hour earlier, and by 8, 9 o'clock at night, forget it. I'm on the couch. I'm dozing off.
Well, I'm a grouchy bear these days because I'm in my 3rd week in the Mediterranean diet. I'm trying it.
Oh, you still doing it?
Yeah, still doing it. 3 weeks of lots of veggies, certain grains.
So no Carvel in 3 weeks?
No, not even close.
Good for you.
No, it's not good for me. I'm gonna yell at the window. I'm mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take it anymore. It's just, it's look, I'm doing the right thing, and my pants are getting loose, which is great. Shucks. Why is one of the great pleasures in life bad for you?
I know.
Steak and mashed potato followed by a bowl of ice cream is really not that good for you. But what about the experience? It's not good for you.
Yeah.
Well, on that upbeat note, no, I'm kidding.
No, I told you. We talked about this a while back, but I said I think to make you feel a little better and get that grump out of you a little bit. You make a visit to Carvel. Have a Carvel Light. Have a kid sized Carvel Light. I know it's not the real thing. It's Carvel Light, but think about it. It'll sort of satisfy your craving temporarily.
But here's the reason. I'll be blunt about this. It's not so much the weight; it's the sugar. My sugar numbers.
Oh, okay.
All right. So if I'm trying to decrease the sugar numbers, which in this diet is good for, I'm going to kind of follow it to the T.
Yeah.
Listen, I've had my cheeseburgers, young man. I've had my milkshakes. I've had my malteds. I had Lucretia back in the day too. But one thing's for sure. This is terrible. No, dieting is not fun. But you know what? I told you before, and people who know me know this, 2020, 2021, the pandemic, where I was stuck at home for 14 months. I lost 45 pounds.
Yeah.
Because I figured, well, if I'm going to be eating at home most of the time, I'm not going to bring any garbage food in the house. And so I'm doing the same thing today. That's basically it. And the
Yeah,
weight
right.
just fell off. After the first month, the weight fell off. I almost looked human for a few minutes. It was pretty good.
But you know what? It was almost like the opposite for me, and I'm sure a lot of people too, because for me, during COVID, it was when we went remote, and even though I didn't do too much walking when I worked, it added up because I would have to take the subway and every day walk up and down one of those humongous flights of stairs. And then I would walk 3 blocks to my job, and you get off the subway and you're running for the train and you're getting to your car and you do this. So I was more active. But I know like the first year of COVID, when I was home working, there wasn't as much activity. I wasn't out, I wasn't forced to go out and walk and do these things. So that's why I would go out and try to walk my dog and things like that. But for me, it had the opposite effect the first year or two.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. It just depends on how you handle it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I wish you good health. I wish
You
myself
too.
good health now.
You as well.
It's gonna be an interesting health year for me. And by the way, folks, when I talk about my health on the show, which I'm not gonna do a lot, I don't want anybody sending me your prayers, and I don't want anybody getting upset. I'm in good health, all right? I really am. So, I have a thing. You ever have it's not an elective surgery, but I'm going to have a surgery that's necessary to stay healthy. Does that make any sense? So, I'm not sick. It's almost like a preventive surgery that I'm having. Does that make sense, Joe? You know what I'm having, right?
Yes, it does. Sure.
So, it's a preventive surgery so that I don't get ill in the future. And I'm looking forward to it. Putting on my big boy pants, and I'm gonna just hack me open. Go for it, because I think it's gonna result in a better retirement life for me, so it'll be good. The only problem is, will we miss any time on the show? The answer to that, folks, I'm telling you right now, is no. I'm gonna be out every Friday by hook or by crook. And it won't be best ofs either, gonna be new shows, 'cause, I and Steve Gennarelli, well, might as well let the cat out of the bag about this, right, Joe? There are gonna be shows where Joe's not here. Here's why. Steve Gennarelli and I are doing some special shows. That's a particular topic that him and I are interested in. They're shorter shows, but they will fill the gap of let's say if I have to spend a couple weeks in a hospital or something like that, you'll have shows on those weeks. There you go.
There you go. Problem solved. And the listeners won't have to be deprived of the outdated wrestling hour any of these weeks.
And I have some book news. I thought I was finished with the book. I'm not nearly finished with the book. I'm not. I learned a lot. I was writing. And what I have done now, I'm really happy with, super happy with. Here's the problem. Not long enough. I thought it was long enough. It's 34,000 words. That sounds like a lot of writing, right? No, it's like half a book.
Wow. So you're only halfway done?
Yeah, I'm only halfway done, really. Yeah. But then again, I didn't figure it for photos, because the thing's gonna be layered with photos too that people have never seen before. And I think maybe really another 75 pages, and we'll be ready to put something out. This is not gonna be like an Ian Douglas like tome, though.
Mhm.
This isn't a history book. It's just personal recollections, and I hope it's funny, and I hope you learn something. And there's a lot about wrestling, and there's a lot about my music career that you heard about on the mixtape show. Did you hear the mixtape show, by the way?
I certainly did.
What did you think?
It was great. I loved it.
Isn't that a great show?
Yeah. It was really
And that's
interesting.
up your alley too, because they have a lot of the music that you listen to, I think, on their on their roster of past shows.
Sure.
The show's called Mixtapes, and they are our special guests this week. And we're going to talk about wrestling music. And I'm shocked at how much they knew. They were all over it. And boy, do they sound like broadcasters, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
They got
No,
great voices for radio, I say, but when I mean podcasts. But I'm 100 years old. So anyway, hang on for a minute or two. We're going to bring on the Mixtape boys. Generation X Wire, the website with a difference, and what a difference. What you got that's new?
Harry Wayne Casey, who you might not know
Is
that
that
name.
KC and the Sunshine Band?
There you go. You did know. Casey and the Sunshine Band.
Are you kidding? You have a great talent.
Well, I wasn't sure if you knew the real name. Obviously, everybody refers to him as Casey, but yeah, Casey from Casey and the Sunshine Band, feature on him. We'll be speaking to him. Here is one for all the horror fans out there. Felissa Rose, who was the lead character in the 1980s horror movie called Sleepaway Camp, which was a cult classic. Trust me when I say, if you're a horror fan, especially from that era, you know that movie. It's known for its shock ending, and it was always one of my favorite movies. And I had the pleasure of speaking with Felissa, so feature on her. And yeah, things like that. And again, I'm constantly working on new guests, and we'll see who else is on the horizon.
Very cool. And 2 new names.
There you
KC.
go. He is still touring. Believe it or not, he's out there and he's still doing the dance moves and he's still singing "Give It Up" and "Shake Your Booty" and all those classic songs. I mean, people forget he had some career. He had some of the biggest disco hits ever.
Yes, he did. And then he surprised everybody with that ballad he did.
Yes.
Which the name escapes me right now, but I know he did a ballad, "Let Go," whatever it was, and it was like, wow, that's KC? Everybody was kinda shocked in that era.
He sort of veered away from disco a little bit in the early to mid '80s before they disbanded, just because that's what happened in music. I mean, disco sort of died, so they had no choice but to go with a different sound. So
That era really bugged me though, because here's the thing, I was never a big disco guy, really, and I'll tell you this.
I'm shocked.
Then yeah, I know, and then a lot of the rockers started making music with that thumpa thing going on, and then disco died, and then the disco people tried to sound like rock.
I know.
So it was a fad that lasted a good solid 5 years, and I continued with just "Disco Duck Killed Disco." When that song was on the radio, everybody went, "That's enough." And I think I've read in more than one circle that "Disco Duck" by Rick Dees was what killed the whole movement, because it was oversaturation at that point.
I always think of 2 bands who just to use your example, you said rock bands that went disco. The 2 big songs, one of my favorite all-time bands is Stones when they did "Emotional Rescue," which the funny thing is I have in later years gotten into that song. I like the song, but I mean, it is crazy. I mean, that is pure disco, that song. And the other one, which rockers would always know, Kiss, when they did "I Was Made for Loving You." And that one just is like an epitome of a disco classic. And it's so crazy to think Kiss, with their makeup and spitting blood, did a disco song, but they did. I mean, most bands did. I don't want to say all bands, but a lot of the bands changed their style and they went that route.
Even Stephen Stills did a song called "Can't Get No Booty."
That I don't know.
Yes, but nobody heard it, and what was on one of his albums. And then BTO did a song called "Easy Groove," which was like it sounded kind of like, a light disco song.
Okay.
Were they good songs? Stephen Stills, yeah, because it was tongue in cheek. BTO, no way. Oh God, it was awful. Their last album, Freeways, where they experimented with new sounds. Ooh, painful.
Wow.
A couple good songs on it, but the Freeways album is not a classic.
Yeah, I could take it or leave it. The disco genre in general. I mean, some of the songs to me are just catchy, and you just kind of, you do. I mean, I don't know. What do you think of the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack?
Let me put it this way: it's not my cup of tea, but I don't mind it.
Yeah.
I mean, the Bee Gees were geniuses. They were geniuses.
Right.
Slumping career. Everybody had them written off 3 times.
Yep.
And they come up with that new sound, and they were the biggest thing since sliced bread. They weren't the biggest thing since sliced bread, but they were new. An amazing career resurgence. I never saw anything quite like it. They were almost like Elvis for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So, good for them.
Sure.
And good for us that we're here again, and we're going to talk all about wrestling music. So get your best headphones on, put on your disco shorts, maybe your roller disco skates, right?
Yeah.
Let's get ready. If you do that, you're crazy. Thanks for being here, Joe.
Thank you, Bob.
Count to 9.5 with a rhythmic beat, and we'll be right back. The really fun thing about doing podcasts is you never know what kind of a day you're going to have. Now, today, as I'm setting up to do this podcast, about 6 months ago, I bought a Chromebook. I like Chromebooks for this kind of work, right? So I buy this Chromebook, and I sit down to do today's show, and it doesn't remember my password. And I knew what the password was. So I had to kind of wipe it clean, start it fresh, reinstall some stuff, la-dee-da. Now we're on our studio number 2 getting this show started. It's just one of those days where there's ghosts in the machine, as the police would say. But it's all going to be good now because I have the gentleman from the Mixtapes podcast, and they were so nice to let me on their show a couple of weeks ago. You all heard it. I wanted to welcome them to this show. And we're going to talk wrestling in just a few minutes. And you go, how's that going to work? Well, you'll find out. In any event, we have Mike Moots and Eric Stangeland from Mixtapes, a wonderful podcast. Guys, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Bob.
Thanks
Appreciate
for
it,
having
man.
us.
Big fan of the show. I'm a weekly listener to your show, so it was a ton of fun interviewing you, and we got a lot of cool stuff. And I think peel back the curtain for your fan base to understand your career in music, which I thought was super cool, is what we wanted to do, and I think we achieved that for sure.
You really did. And if anybody wants to hear my music biography, I'm going to point them toward your podcast. I bandied about the idea of doing one, having somebody interview me on my own Entertainment Hour podcast. But I just thought it was egotistical. I thought I would come off as self-promoting. I'm not here to sell anything. Those records have been out for 30 years. If I sell 15 copies a year, I'm happy with that of all my old stuff. It's because blues doesn't sell it. It's not like pop music. So
right.
In any event, but I think it's good music. And the fact that you guys thought it was good music too is a great compliment to me, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, it was cool. I was, because you always talk in your show. We talked about it in the episode. Is that you'll pepper little things in, and I'd hear you talk about, BB King, and I'm like, man, this is interesting. And then, I was wondering where your intro and outro music came from. I didn't know if that was you or not. And then I just was like, you know what? I'm going to reach out to him. Voila. We had a great conversation for about an hour and a half about your career, being on the road, given that little, like I said, peeling back the curtain a little bit so people understand what it's like being a touring musician, what it's like putting out records, what it's like trying to hold a band together and, having people stolen from your band because your band's so darn good.
Yeah.
Things like that. So
it's par for the course in the blues, I'll tell you right now. There was a guy named Tommy Cairo I used to really admire, guitar player. Blues guitar player, and he would just jump in the van with a bunch of guys and travel, but he was able to do it for a living and do probably about 200 gigs a year.
Yeah,
that's what I wanted to do. I was really looking forward to do it. I only got as high as about 150 one time, but overall, I don't regret it. We had a blast. I mean, Chicago Blues Festival, so come on.
Yeah.
Pier 17, the city, all the great clubs we played, we did it. We did it on a real basis, so that's all I could ask for.
Hanging out with John Mayer, and John Mayer talking to you, sitting in with John Mayer, playing with BB King, would you say 10 times, becoming friends with BB King? I mean.
Well, that's just a blessing times 50. What a great man he is. And and you guys can hear all about that on the Mixed Tapes podcast, because we really go into detail on that. We had such fun, and your podcast sounds great. And Mark, say something. Mark Moots is here as well.
Oh, yeah, I am. I'm here. No, the show was awesome, and I did go back and listen to some of those records. They're killer, man. Like, it's good stuff. So I'm stoked that we got to have you on and hear your story, which is a great one. And this is super cool. You're dragging us on here to confuse your listeners and see what we know about some other things.
Well, I have a feeling you must know a little bit about wrestling. Why would you listen to my podcast?
Dude, it's in my it's my first name. I'm a Mark.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even put that together. Wow.
You're welcome.
But it's better than calling yourself Smark Moots or something
That's
like
right.
that. Yeah,
that's right.
Look, I'm so old. I go back to the days when nobody had a designation. There were no smarts. There were no smarks. There were no. For me, those terminologies were for the wrestlers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now you meet somebody who talks, I know a lot about wrestling. I'm no kayfabe. And I'm like, it's been 40 years now. Why do you have to impress me with the word kayfabe? It's like, just say I follow it and enjoy it. The problem is everybody's out to prove themselves to be an expert at something they've never done.
Well, and they missed the point. The whole point was the suspension of disbelief. It's like when you go watch a movie, go see Star Wars, you don't start thinking about, oh, I wonder where they filmed this, and oh, they didn't this and that, whatever. You go to be entertained, and that's what it used to be back in the day with wrestling. You went to be entertained. You turn on, for me, Channel 9, Saturday mornings, I'd turn on WWF and I'd be entertained when I was a kid. You root for people, you had your favorites, you had the heels you couldn't stand. Like for me, Honky Tonk Man was the guy that drove me up the wall. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing, though. And then as you get older, and you look back on it, and I listen to a couple of podcasts. I got a shout out OVP, if you don't mind. I love their podcast. Mm-hmm. And it's cool to see it at a different lens when you get older. So like they talk, they'll talk about how, oh, well, I hate Honky Tonk Man. It's like, well, then he did his job. You know what I mean? And you kind of realize that,
You are psychic. I taped a Buffer podcast with Steve Gennarelli recently, and we were talking about underrated wrestlers. I had him on my list because it's the same as you. I couldn't stand it. He was such a tool, right? He was just so annoying. And he wasn't all that talented. He wasn't all that big or strong, and yet he'd eke his way through these victories. He was doing his job.
Yes.
He wanted you to hate him. He's like, you know who he is now? The Miz.
Yeah.
Every time he gets on his feet, you go,
Yes.
get out of here. And when he retires, you go, he did his job great.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
I think that's, I was always, I'm a heel guy. Like, I love the heels. That's how I've always been. And I think that might be partly why, is because the more you hate them, the better they are. As you look back at even like the Sheik back in the day, where his heat was real.
Mm-hmm.
There were people who wanted to kill that guy. I'm glad that didn't happen to him. But like, I appreciate people like The Miz and Honky Tonk, even like the Mountie, because he sucked. But like people hated him so much that I was like, you know what? Good for you, dude. That's amazing. It's harder to be a good heel than to just be, white meat babyface.
Well, if you go back to the territory days, which you guys are too young for that, but if you go back to the territory days, if you take a good look at the rosters of, let's say, the big three, the AWA, WWF, and NWA, the faces were always kind of there, the same names over and over.
Mm-hmm.
It was the heels that would travel from territory to territory to get different new kinds of heat into the organizations when they needed a new, let's say, contender for whoever was the champion at the time. Like, if you look at a guy like Ray Stevens, he wrestled all three. Nick Bockwinkel wrestled all three. Lawler would travel around. Whoever the heels were, you wanted to get a new, fresh heel in there. And WWF in the old days had a science. Every 2 months, they had a new, fresh heel to take on whoever the champion was.
I want to throw something at you I thought was interesting is when you watch how a heel is a babyface at first and they don't have it right, and then they got to push him to heel. Because remember in the beginning, Honky was kind of like, tried to make him babyface. It didn't work. He went to heel. And the other one, I've been watching that OVP show and they watch weekly, right? So they're in 88 right now. The Rougeau brothers.
Right.
It's funny how they're like baby faces. And then you can see that they have to turn them heel because they're not going over.
Right.
So
right.
I always thought was interesting. And as a kid, I didn't see it. But like, as you see it now, you realize more like, okay, yeah. Like the fans of Jake the Snake was another one, right? Jake the Snake was a total heel, but too many people rooting Macho Man, same thing. Too many people rooting for him, and then they almost had to push him in the opposite direction, which I thought was interesting.
It's amazing how a heel will go over, and then they kind of morph it into a face these days. A good example is Rhea Ripley.
Yeah.
So she was so good, you couldn't deny how great she was in the ring, and then you can't help but turn her. Because, to have her remain as a heel, she was so dominant anyway, you could take the chance and move her into the other side and still be every bit as big a star.
Do you think she could have stayed that way, though?
Sure.
No.
I think circumstances and the roster, you know what? She would have dominated all those short girls, or the shorter ones, like the Liv Morgans and the Stephanie Becker and people like that. I think she would have dominated to the point where it would seem unseemly. So now they took the edge off her just a little bit.
Yeah.
And speaking of music, we'll go to her. We'll talk about her for a second here.
Sure.
Do you ever notice when she comes down the aisle, she's singing her song?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nobody else does that, but she sings along with her theme music.
Yeah, I've noticed that after I watched a couple of her matches, and it was like, oh, she's really into her tune, and the entrance is great. I don't think the song is great, to be fair, but it works for her character so well. I do think it's interesting that she sings it, though. I always kind of wondered why.
I think
she likes it.
I think she likes. I think because it's Motionless in White, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
So if she likes it, because they played.
Yes.
I think they played behind her at WrestleMania, right? Was that correct?
Yep.
Or
yeah.
So I mean that makes sense to a degree. I mean, man, boy, we're going to go down a rabbit hole, aren't we, with this?
I hope so.
We're going to go on a rabbit hole today on music and music in, because I'll tell you one thing. Me and the little guy, we watched Royal Rumble, and it was really funny because he's hungry, right? And this is before the Gunther match, and I love Gunther, right? Or Gunther. I go, all right. He's like, well, Dad, I don't want to go anywhere. I said, okay, fine. Don't worry about it. I go, I'll go to Wendy's and pick up food for you and your brother. I go, put a stopwatch on and let's see how long it takes for them to get to the ring between the entrance music and if Dad can get back home before the match starts. And I missed like maybe 3 minutes in a match. But it's crazy how much the entrance music has affected wrestling nowadays compared to how it did back in the day. Like, it's very interesting. It's so much more theatric than it used to be. Like in the old days, right? Or the older days, I should say, maybe, right? Road Warriors.
Yes.
Coming out to Iron Man. I think we all talked about this in the podcast. Remember, we talked when the record button was off. That might have been the first time I heard Iron Man.
Just general, not even on the radio or anything like that.
I think that was the first time I heard it, and because that had to been like what 83.
Yeah.
I wasn't hearing Iron Man in on what WNEW or any of those New York stations.
They weren't playing that.
I don't believe so. I don't.
Wow.
At least when I was like a kid. That's the early 80s, so I don't think they were playing it. And that was the first time I heard it. When you hear that, here come these dudes with face paint on and the shoulder pads, and you're just going like, I mean, as a 9-year-old kid, I'm like, these guys are awesome.
It's everything you would ever want.
Yeah.
Like they were like visually, like the work in the ring was great, but yeah, boy, what a cool tune to pick.
And set it up.
And it was pre-WWF when they were doing that.
Yep. Yeah, it was AWA, MWA, right?
So they did that themselves.
Yeah.
It's probably, they said, we're going to use this as our, and they did it. And it just matched them so perfectly, I thought.
Yeah. No, it was.
Because it shows you how not global wrestling was yet because of all of those things they were using that were famous songs. And they would have had to gotten to the rights for them, and they didn't get the rights for them. They didn't, because then magically those songs disappeared out of.
We talk about this on the show a lot. Those old wrestling programs with their theme songs, years and years back. The first one I ever got into was back in 72 or 71. It was the NWF in Cleveland was using Classical Gas by Mason Williams, and they just pulled it. They would just pull it and use it.
No one cares.
WWF back in the 80s was using Maynard Ferguson on one of their syndicated shows, and the Dixie Dregs on another one.
Yeah.
If you listen close, oh my God, yeah, that's the Dregs.
All the way to the early 80s too, right? They were doing Easy Lover for WrestleMania and a ton of that stuff.
Well, if you notice now, if you see replays of those shows anywhere on YouTube, it's all edited out.
Yeah,
everything's edited out.
They have to.
Now they would get their asses sued off for doing that.
Or the licensing would be so insane they don't want to pay it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think they don't want to pay it is the key to that statement. I'm sure that they could, especially now, they could pay licensing towards whatever they wanted. They just don't.
Why do you think I don't use my own music on my podcast? The reason for it is because I'd have to pay somebody to do it. Because not every song I ever wrote was just like there may be another songwriter involved, a different publisher involved.
Sure.
So I just avoid using my own music because I don't want to get in trouble with myself.
That's hysterical. I tell you, it changes it. It makes it different if you grew up watching wrestling and then you see Steamboat come out on WrestleMania 3. If you want to rewatch that match, that Alan Parsons song isn't there. It's different, man. It's not the same. It shows you how important music was back then, but I feel like it's overblown now.
Jey Uso, right? And his little bit that he does. I mean, we've got 6-minute walk-ins now?
Yeah, more,
because he keeps running it back. And it's at this point, dude, I get it. Let's see the actual work. I mean, and I get it. I'm not probably his target audience unless he turns, and then I'll be interested. But
when he was opening shows on Raw for a while, it would be 16 minutes before anything happened, really, before anybody locked up or before anybody said a word.
Yep.
Incredible. Now, here's the problem with that, and this is WWE's at fault for this. In the arena, everybody's going nuts and having a wonderful time, but watching it at home, it is not that same effect.
No, it's boring.
Get on with it, everybody's saying at home. And I think they maybe realize that now because they're not as extreme with it at this point. So
I hope so. I mean, to be fair, I took a break from watching the product for a number of years, and then when WWE got on Netflix, I was like, oh, I'm watching it. I'll watch it again. I'll watch Raw, and I was so blown away by how over Jey is.
Yeah,
and the energy in that crowd is so impressive for the Yeet thing. But now I'm like, yeah, dude, just can you hurry it up? please. Like I would rather, I want to watch the match, dude.
Yeah, that's what the fast forward button's for, though.
Well, seriously, yeah, and that's where I've got it down pretty good at this point.
Yeah.
I think Gunther has a great intro. It hits the character perfect. Which
that's a good point you make, because let's get into the psychology of all this. All right, there is a psychology behind everything that wrestling does, even today, even though it seems dumber than Maypo. But in any event, I still think the moment in pro wrestling, I was talking to Eric about this earlier, I think the moment in pro wrestling that changed things a lot was way back around 84 when the Fabulous Freebirds were around, and Michael Hayes in that song Bad Street USA with his vocal on it.
Yeah.
It popped. I mean, it popped, and they were heels.
Yes.
And people still went nuts for the song and for them as they made their ring entrances. And you know what? I think that was the big catalyst to starting this whole trend. I could be wrong about that. There was probably something before that. But to me, the turning point was that particular moment.
That makes sense to me. I mean, and it did change things a lot, because all of a sudden, I mean, they were the Freebirds and they were heels and they were so great. But then now there's something that unifies it even more. There's that moment with a lot of these things where it's like you hear 1 second and you know exactly who's coming, what's going to happen. And I think that is such like good psychology. Taker's gong.
Yep.
That's all you need is just the gong. Yep. And you know what's about to happen. And you know, Rhea's song does that. Big Show.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just that.
Well, as a blues guy, I always
no.
That sounded like the worst bar band in town to me. I'm sorry.
Blues Hammer.
I'm sorry, but yes, you're right. It was an identifier.
Yes,
absolutely. So it did its intended job. But the original version of that song. Oh, yeah, gosh.
The dude who did the remake, well, I've been chatting with him a little bit online, and he's a good singer. He was in kind of a like metal band, and they hired his band to redo the show's theme.
Really?
And I see him talking about it online quite a bit. I'm actually trying to get him on our show. Hey, Joe, how are you? Whether the quality of the song isn't important with most of this stuff. I mean, look at Real American. Like, it's not Derringer's best work, but boy.
All right. So let's go back to that era now, and we'll get Eric involved here. It's like WWF saw all this happening, and they did this rock and roll connection thing. What do they call it? Rock and roll connection.
Rock and roll connection.
Again, 84, 85. And they're like, we're going to capitalize on this. So they came out with the original wrestling album.
Yep.
Featuring the WWF stars with The Land of 1,000 Dances, which was a great video. I don't care what anybody said. Grab Them Cakes by the Junkyard Dog and whoever. Real American from Hogan. At the helm of that was Rick Derringer, the old classic rocker from Bigger Winter Days and stuff like that. And David Wolf, who was hooked up with Cyndi Lauper. I love how some people call it a classic album when it peaked at number 84 in Billboard, but now it's looked upon as this absolute classic. It just barely grazed the 80s and then slipped back down again. But after that, they knew they had a thing going. Everybody had a theme, so they hired Jim Johnson. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And he came up with so many of those themes over the course of 3 decades. Everybody. And they collaborated with people like Motorhead and Disturbed and Kid Rock and Ice-T and Run DMC, and just go down the list of the people they enlisted to take part in coming up with these amazing themes. Jim Johnson, although he got very samey and you could tell it was his work, because it was some of it sounded a lot like Baywatch themes and stuff like that. But he composed the Steve Austin song, the Rock's theme, the Undertaker's theme, D-Generation X, which is probably the best of the bunch. I like that one. Randy Orton, Shawn Michaels, and down the list it went. So what did you guys think of all that? I mean, it's like you can probably pick out and remember some old wrestling themes in your head right now just talking to me about it.
Oh, absolutely. I'll tell you one thing I'm so bummed out about is I'm so bummed out that Jive Soul Bro was a cover. I never realized that.
Are you serious?
It is. Slick's Jive Soul Bro is a cover. Yeah, go check it out on YouTube. I just found that out like a year ago. It bummed me out. Totally bummed me out. But
do you remember who came up with it originally?
I don't. Mark, get on it.
Yeah, I'll get on
it. He's my Mr. Google. But let's throw some love at Jimmy Hart too, because Jimmy Hart was definitely a talented musician, Gentry's, and he composed some of that stuff also. So it's kind of like a two-headed monster in the beginning. I think one of the things it did for people was if you had entrance music, you were taken more seriously as maybe up the ladder, as up the food chain in terms of where you were. There were certain guys that didn't have music, which I thought was interesting. I don't think Jake the Snake had music in the beginning. King Kong Bundy didn't have music. There was guys that didn't. Maybe the heel of the hour didn't. Like, and WWF went through those guys like the monsters Hogan would slay every 2 months, like Killer Khan. I don't remember him having music.
No.
I think it started shifting, if I'm correct, and excuse me if I'm not, about 87 is when it really started to seem like it was going to be dominant in terms of like everybody's got to have some sort of entrance music. As a musician, I always thought a lot of the music was kind of corny that was written for the artist, not the cover songs. And I remember when Pile Driver came out, that album, and my buddy down the street got
Right.
it, and I was like, okay. But I was really, really getting into guitar and music then, and just it always seemed like, can we do better than this? $1 million business now, and it's like it's almost like having like your kid brother write, these songs that I don't know. It's weird because some like the Ultimate Warrior one cracks me up. Like the Ultimate Warriors one but it works, right? Like Mark said, it works for, you hear that dun, 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 and then he comes out and he's shaking the the ring and whatnot. But I mean, that's so pedestrian when it could have been so much cooler.
I have to jump in here with a funny
Jump in.
story. I'm going to embarrass myself in front of my listenership and everybody else. Are you ready? I guess
I'm
it's
ready.
the early 90s, and I'm watching, it was the late 80s. I forget when this was, but I have in my VCR an adult tape.
Uh-oh.
All right? I'm going to
Uh-huh.
fess up. I was watching an adult tape,
Uh-oh. Call the police.
and a piece of music comes on in the midst of all this running, right? It's like the music starts in the background. You know how they used to produce. And I went, that sounds familiar. I know this song. And I can't, it was just an instrumental, but I knew the song.
That's amazing.
And it just goes to show you how WCW used to cheap out, because the song turned out to be Alex Wright's theme song.
Oh, wow.
Back in the Monday night, the Monday Night War days.
Yeah.
Remember Alex Wright, when he pushed for a couple of years?
Yeah.
But the song that was in the background of all this moaning and groaning, in two different categories, they were moaning and groaning into the song.
Absolutely. Well, that could have created a weird Pavlovian thing for you too.
So,
So it's probably good that didn't happen.
but I have a feeling that a lot of those WCW things were just stock music.
Yeah.
Probably.
I could see Goldberg's song being stock music. It sounded like stock music to me.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
weird too, because with how important, entrance music became, you think they would have put a little more into it, especially when they saw it. It's kind of like weird. Sometimes, those wrestling companies can be visionaries, and sometimes they're really missing the mark big time. You know what I mean? And that's one where I feel like there could have been a lot more that they did. I mean, obviously the Cyndi Lauper thing, she was huge at that moment. And that was, I think, a big push. I mean, the MTV ratings were through the roof from what I've read. But then it's like you kind of don't follow it up. And I thought that was weird. And I'm surprised more people didn't jump on that were famous right away. And because like now you have it more, but Mark has an interesting thing he said that I thought was interesting about how he thinks some stuff might be AI. Yeah.
I think some of this stuff is so generic and flat and lifeless that they could just be pumping them out AI, because you can do that in like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And it's relatively convincing to the untrained ear isn't the right thing. But like if you're not discerning and you're not a self-proclaimed expert or whatever, like AI stuff does sound different. And some of these newer entrants themes I hear are like, that's a robot.
Well, and it doesn't surprise me either, because when we go back in the conversation a couple of minutes ago where you're saying they could pay for the licensing, but they don't want to.
Yeah.
Right.
I will tell listeners right now that are enjoying this show, one of the big problems with AI, some people think it's funny and they make content with it and whatever. But the thing that people don't understand is people are losing jobs in the industry because of AI for reasons like this. Like when you go see a movie, like in the next 5 years, it's like it could all be AI generated music. where they just have somebody that has a desk job at Sony or Warner or whatever. And hey, Bob, we got this new movie about this alien attacking Earth and we need this type of sound. Go into the AI machine and create it. And then you just took a residual paycheck from somebody that would create the music. And that to me is like when you go deeper into it, I know a lot of people don't think that aren't musicians, but that's where it gets scary because like, you know,
absolutely.
It's different in terms of like writing and creating music and playing it, but like where musicians have made a lot of other money, I think that those revenue streams are going to be taken away from them, just like the CD was taken away, just like that type of stuff.
Yeah, AI is going to cause havoc with a lot of different avocations and professions. Wait do you see stuff that you wouldn't even think, like retailing and hospitals, everything. It's gonna encroach upon a lot of time honored professions, and I think that dangerous and kind of scary, personally.
I think so. And I think it's hard enough right now for musicians. Like I think we talked off air, Bob, about how Spotify pays you 1/13 of a penny for every spin that your song gets on their platform. 1/13 of a penny. So you're not getting paid, and they're making a ton of money for essentially just hosting bits. But the artists then become like, I'm a t-shirt salesman, man. That's what my band does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like we work really hard. We record albums. We put them out. They do nothing, and we try to sell shirts so we can afford to do it again because we're stupid. You know.
No, you're not. No,
Well,
you're not.
but like I can't help it. You know, this is who I am. This is what I do.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I can't not be in a band and play music. So, but like I've decided years and years ago when I did have some level of scare quotes success in the heavy metal world and came home broke after every tour, that it's like, well, you just don't make money doing this. But like the experience has paid me tenfold, right?
Yeah.
The good and the bad. But now it's like, I know the apps. I could download one of them, log into it, and write a whole album's worth of shit. There's nothing to it. And that's the problem, is there's nothing to it.
Yeah.
It's soulless. It's bloodless. And that to me is really scary.
Right.
Captain Chameleon, early 80s artist, wrote Jive Soul Bro and Grab Them Cakes.
Oh,
wow, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I didn't know about the Grab Them Cakes. Oh,
yeah,
that's
apparently those were both covers.
Here's
Captain Chameleon.
Here's a fun one, right? You say that Spotify pays 1/13 of a penny.
Mm-hmm.
The irony of that is we're getting rid of the penny.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's the irony of the whole thing.
I think I read somewhere that if you got 1 million plays in Spotify for a song, you get $7,000.
That's about right. Yeah. It's insulting.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, I just saw a band I love was posting on social media today that they hit 1 million monthly listeners on Spotify. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Shit,
Yeah.
you're not even paying one guy's rent yet.
I've never seen it like this. Listen, I was in blues back in the day. You never made a lot of money doing that, but I have never seen it so bad for musicians. The fact that anybody breaks out through this, well, the ones that are, they all look like, let's face it, the Tate McRae's of the world. They're personalities. People buy personalities now. Taylor Swift, her. Even Bad Bunny, people like that. It's the personality you're buying. You identify with them for one reason or another, rather than when I was growing up, you'd hear a song by a great band on the radio and you go out and buy it, a 45 RPM record, without ever having seen them.
Look, I think it's something that Paul and Gene figured out a long, long time ago, that it's not about the band, it's about the brand.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're not
and
wrong.
That's where we're at with music in today's age. The whole personality is more important than the actual quality of the music, because we can sell you on that. We'll convince you they're good.
But you just made a good point about the brand. The theme music for these wrestlers is their brand.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That helps solidify their personalities and everything else as they walk that aisle. Everybody from the lowest prelim guy down to the world champion has a theme.
Yeah.
The minute it strikes, you hear the crowd rise because they know exactly who's coming out.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see like jobbers having themes, but why would they? They haven't earned it yet. At some point, it is the thing, like you said back in the day, it's like certain people had it, certain people don't. And now if you're watching Raw or whatever, you start to get to know everybody's song. And so now I know what to expect from Javon Evans or whatever. Can we talk about R-Truth and how great it was that he came out and rapped his own theme live in the arena? Like, I think Truth is amazing. But I thought that was cool because it was like, he's pretty good, but he's also like actually performing, and you knew what was happening and you knew what's up. Like, I think it's an underrated one for me.
Didn't the Honky Tonk Man attempt to sing his own songs for a while?
Jesus.
Well, they did that gimmick for a little bit, where that angle where he couldn't sing and couldn't. Yeah,
I loved how out of tune his guitar was every time he tried to play the da 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 da.
Yep.
That would always crack me up. It's like, oh my God. You know what I do love though, and I think this is kind of a cool thing, and I wish it would happen a little bit more. And it's kind of funny because I wouldn't think CM Punk, being the straight edge guy he is, would want to come out to Cult of Personality, but that has actually revived Living Color's, I won't say career, but it's
sustaining him. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is a great thing. And it's, because I mean, they played on stage with him, when I forget if it was WrestleMania or what it was. I thought that was super cool. Things like that where they could work together. I see a lot of people at Royal Rumble this year. Linkin Park had the song that was what do they call it? The theme of the show, and that's kind of cool too. But it makes me laugh because it's like, you can't sell it. Like, go stream it for 13, half a pennies or whatever. I mean, so it kind of hurts them in that sense too. We live in a weird time, gentlemen, when it comes to music and it comes to how music is consumed, how music is devalued because it's not tangible.
If we don't get back to some old stuff, my listenership is gonna.
Sorry.
Hey, Bob, you're not talking about my day, you son of a. They're gonna get mad at me. But let me just throw a couple old things in.
Yeah,
did you guys know that Mean Gene Okerlund was a rock and roll singer at one point?
I absolutely did.
Yeah,
wow. Absolutely.
You ever see the pictures of him with a full head of hair? He was a good-looking guy back in the day.
Yeah, well, didn't he have like a 45 or 2?
Yeah.
And he wasn't.
I think he may have
rock and roll hoochie coo.
Wait a minute, hold the phone.
The wrestling one.
Gene Okerlund sang Rick Derringer's Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo.
I'm pretty sure he did. Mr. Google, Mark Moots.
I'm already all over it.
Yeah, get on that one. I can't even picture that. I remember they had a jam once on one of the Monday night shows or something like that. And they're singing Tutti Frutti, and Hogan's on the bass, and other wrestlers are pretending to play other things, I think. But here's Gene in the front going, swing it, testify. And I'm like, oh, you're my man, guy. You're just really something else. So,
well, hey, can we give a shout out to Hulk Hogan for turning down Metallica so he had a wrestling career?
Oh, I love that story. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Hulk.
Another thing that's real interesting too about the old days, and I heard this from Cornette, is a lot of times they would take a microphone and put it up on the boombox speaker, and they would actually play tapes, and that was the entrance music through the PAs.
Are you kidding? I've seen that a million times. It's
Isn't
like
wild?
I would go to indie shows in Long Island, and sometimes they would try to hide, but it was hilarious when they didn't. You'd see them fumbling with cassettes, right?
Well, you can hear it too.
The thing and, right. Yeah, and then it would start up, and it always sounded bad because they're through the mono gym speakers. They're really meant for lunch announcements and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So it was.
But it kind of shows you how they just weren't, like we talked about earlier in the conversation. They weren't really forward thinking when it came to. Hey,
that's okay.
What? Like, we should kind of get this set up better.
Listen,
what I mean?
down south, I forget where I was, but I swear I heard this. I'm in a wrestling arena, and because I was with the magazines, I always had a ringside seat, or even at a table next to the ring. And I look over, and somebody was hitting a horseshoe with a wrench. That was the ring bell. Honk.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I was like, wow, okay, whatever it takes. And nobody said boo. Apparently, they've done it that way forever. So just you got to remember, not every venue is Madison Square Garden.
That's amazing. What do you got?
That's true. So he was Gene Carroll was his actual name, and he was in a rock outfit called Gene Carroll and the Shades. They had several 45s in the late 50s and early 60s. Red Devil, do you remember? And Is It Ever Gonna Happen? So he did do some novelty recordings, working with Jimmy Hart, apparently, Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo.
Yeah.
Okay. So he covered it with Derringers, probably on one of those wrestling albums.
I have to go check this out.
You know what you have to do is you have to look up the YouTube video of it.
It's right here. I can hit play.
Hysterical. He's got a wig on. He's got like a pink or purple wig on, and it's in a classroom. Oh, it's amazing. Let me ask you guys this. Let's keep it old school, like you said, right? Who do you think, and this is going to be maybe a weird question because you'll have to think about it for a second. Who had the best entrance music, both wrestlers, in a match? Mine is Steamboat Savage, WrestleMania 3. You know what I mean? Like, it just hits perfectly. I mean, Flair jumps into my mind, but I don't know who Flair would be with. That would be so. I mean, you could say Flair Hogan, but those were just house shows.
HBK.
But with who?
Flair.
That's what I mean. Okay.
I mean, that's an interesting, like, contrast.
Right, because it's because, like, you know, look, WrestleMania 3, that Savage Steamboat match is amazing.
Yeah.
It's like one of the best ones of all time, in my opinion, right? But how much does that music in the beginning set up the mood and the vibe for that arena?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm curious, because, you know, every time Hogan came out to Real American, it popped. But did you guys know? Did you guys know who had Real American before Hogan?
No.
Wasn't it the U.S. Express? I think the U.S. Express had it before Hogan did.
Yeah, I think I recently read something that just like once or twice they used that song, and then they switched it over to Hogan.
And then it became Hogan's, and that was
because Hogan was using Eye of the Tiger originally.
He was using Eye of the Tiger, and the Survivor probably said, "Nope, not so much." Former member of Metallica, you need to pay us for that.
Yeah, you go. You know, for me, I'll just go with old school, new school, Goldberg versus Ric Flair. The ominous Goldberg music into the classic. Dun, 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 dun. You know, it was just two different entire schools who thought two different eras in one ring.
That's a good one.
All right, I got one for you guys.
Yeah.
Your favorite ring music and entrance of all time. I have one that will surprise you, I am sure.
Ooh.
But you could start. Just your favorite ring music and entrance of all time. The thing that you thought really sold it and really brought it home. Mine is such an offbeat pick, but I want to hear your guys' pick.
God, that's so hard because I can go with Road Warriors with Iron Man because kind of the first one for me. But I could also say Macho Man because that music, dun, 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 and he just comes out there. And it's just such a, you know, I mean, I'm going to go Road Warriors though, because to me that was just, I mean, think about this. Like, what else are you coming out to that's going to personify how badass you are at that time period? Like, it's just friggin' perfect. So that's mine.
I agree.
That's mine.
I agree.
That's mine.
A little later, I honestly think Triple H is The Game with the Motorhead song. I always thought that was so good, and it fit his character really well. And he always had these big, grand WrestleMania entrances. I thought that was really good. I love Flair's entrance every time.
Yeah,
because so I kind of think that Flair's might be my favorite overall because it's just so on the nose perfect for the way he carried himself. And then Bobby Roode ripped it off later, but that was cool. I liked that too. I liked Bobby. But yeah, I think Flair probably.
Yeah, it's a good one too. I'm not going to lie.
All right, brace yourselves for this one.
All right.
Moderately recent, I guess it's about 11 years ago at this point or so. Cracked me up every time in the sheer ridiculousness of it all. I'm not saying these were great wrestlers, but they had this lavish entrance. You see two beautiful African-American women booty bumping down the aisle. And here comes waddling Brodus Clay and Tensai, two 350, 375-pound guys. And they are shaking it, and they can't dance a lick. Not a lick. If you remember that tag team, and the women were called the Funkadactyls. Excuse me.
Dactyls.
That's right.
And the song was "Funk Is All Around." It was called "Funk Is All Around," and it for sheer entertainment value, matching the moment. Just they would invariably jump in the ring and lose to a better team, and so it didn't even matter.
Right.
The entrance was absolute art. I just thought it was so over the top. So they were so not funky, these two big guys.
Right.
Not in the least. And there's nothing, as Mel Brooks will tell you, there's nothing funnier than bad dancing.
Yes. You're not wrong.
Nothing. How many Mel Brooks movies had bad dancing in it?
Elaine from
Like,
Seinfeld.
and
Yeah.
and the cowboys at Blazing Saddles, saying
Yep.
dancing around to Camptown races, and not one of them could. Oh my God! So that's my favorite. I just thought it carried characters. It only lasted for about 6 months, and I loved every minute of it.
How about this? How about songs that were so bad they were catchy back in the day? I'll go with Tie Me Kangaroo Down by Outback Jack. That one was so bad it was catchy. And
Outback Jack, I got to tip my cap. I don't even remember that.
you remember Outback Jack? He lasted.
No, I remember him. I didn't remember him using that song.
Oh yeah, Tie Me Kangaroo Down, mate. Yeah, or Sport, I think it was. Yeah,
Yes.
that one. Honky Tonk Man's one was another one that wasn't so good, but was just so damn catchy. You guys got any of those that you remember that were just?
Shawn Michaels' entrance is one of the worst songs I've ever heard in my life. But every time I hear it, I think it's the best thing I've ever heard.
Oh, that's so good. How about you, Bob? You got to have one.
Terrible ring music, huh?
But
any WCW star, anyone.
But that was catchy.
They use it stock music, though. I would just, it's just thrown on these people. Let me think. Is there anyone that I really?
It's got to be catchy. So it was so bad it was catchy.
Give me a second on this one.
Yeah. Boy, I did love me some Jive Soul Bro though.
Jive Soul Bro is great.
Here's the thing, guys. Seriously now. When I was watching wrestling growing up, way back when, I am telling you, the first thing you'd see on your TV is the ring announcer in the ring with an ill-fitting suit. There's a tag team on one side. There's a tag team on the other side. There's a light above the ring. They rang a bell and they started wrestling. To me, everything that had happened since is just window dressing. That's all it is. And this is why, even though I'm doing this thing about music, in my mind is rolling around, I don't care.
Right.
Because I'm old enough to remember when it was the blood and guts, grit and spit 1970s, and the wrestling was hard hitting. And when there were a feud, they would, they would, and what's relatively, they didn't even have to battle all over the arena. They would just do it in the ring, and it looked real, and it was. I miss those days. But if I had to pick one song that was, don't go messing with a country boy.
Oh, Little Hillbilly Jim. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. It's stuck in your head like glue, and you didn't want it to.
Yeah.
Yes, that's perfect.
You did it. Yeah, there's so many good ones, man. Oh, that's so funny. And I'll tell you though, the entrance music, it's interesting because it's something that didn't exist, right? The old Joe McHugh days in this corner, right? you go from that to sorry, was that a good one?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
It's like it doesn't exist and it does exist and it gets too out of control. But let me ask you guys this. Does it bother you guys when there's something going on and someone's going to make a save and then the entrance music hits?
Yes, every friggin' time.
Yeah.
Every time.
It feels too scripted.
It makes too sense. And it doubly doesn't make sense because these two guys will be beating on one guy in the ring, right? The two heels. Let's say it's Braun Breaker and Austin Theory. They're beating up whoever the good guy is.
Yeah.
And then the music hits and they stop beating him up to turn around and watch him run down the aisle. Does that make any sense?
Nope.
Yeah.
And they do it every time.
Yeah. You know what's even better than that? Imagine being you're backstage and you're watching on TV and you're like, oh man, he's getting beat up. I'm going to make the save. Hey, hold on. Cue up my music before I go out there to make the save.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, how do you know, how does the guy know to cue up the music on who's coming out to make the save? I mean, I think the new school audience is so conditioned to that.
They are super conditioned. They don't even think of things like this. And nobody watches the referees who don't referee at all these days. Nobody referees.
Right.
There are no referees. You might as well just do it by computer or something like that, like baseball is going to do. Because it's like, watch. I once saw a recent match. Two guys were fighting on the ring apron, which counts as being outside the ring, by the way, on the ring apron.
Yeah.
And they were out there for $1.10 and the woman didn't even count. The female referee didn't even attempt to make a 10 count.
Yeah.
So the rules are out the window. They just are.
Yeah.
They just want the action. They don't really care about the rules. And I think that's true. I don't think the fans give a whit about the rules. They don't care.
No, they're as conditioned as Roman's hair at this point.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, he is always immaculately coiffed, isn't he?
It's and I mean, it moves, but it's so wet and shiny that I mean, he only shows up 3 times a year, so it's not that big a deal.
He shows up so infrequently. He's his old timer.
Yeah,
totally. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
by the
great.
way, I'll say one
Yeah.
last thing about today's wrestling. Why does a guy like Randy Orton get a push in this day and age? He won his first title in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
That's 22 years. New people, please. They keep bringing. There's the one thing about WWE is definitely true. They stick with the old names
Yeah.
all the way through. It doesn't even matter.
All right, well, let me throw this at you. Is there good enough stars that are new to push nowadays?
wouldn't know.
How about LA Knight in that spot instead? Who gets some of the best fan reactions that are there?
But here's the crazy thing. LA Knight's in his 40s.
They all are. Damian Priest is in his 40s.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, where's the young wrestlers? Male or female, there's younger ones, but
Yes.
male wrestlers, where's the young star?
I mean, they
Like-
just brought in Powerhouse Hobbs. They just brought in, Braun Breaker's been around about a year
I was
now.
going to say Braun Breaker's got to be the most recognizable, but then they totally buried him.
Yeah.
I think that it's easier in the women's division. I think they do constantly bring and change things. I think sometimes they push too fast, too soon, but like with Stephanie, maybe. With the guys, look, I love Randy Orton. I think he's great. He has a terrible intro song.
But you know what? I don't hold him being pushed against him.
No, you
No.
can't. You
I
can't.
think he
Can't hold it.
deserves the push. But I totally agree with you that, like, at some point, all these dudes are going to have to go. And what have you built? Like, there's nothing that the house isn't built on anything anymore. It's just a bunch of young kids who they kind of push, but not really. And they'll let them get squashed by the old guy because that's what counts right now.
It's a funny thing. You assemble a large assemblage of talent. You don't have time or room to use them all.
Well, you don't have the really the separation of heel versus baby face anymore too.
There's no such thing as a
You know what I
sports
mean?
writer once
Yeah.
said. It's bad guy versus worse guy now. There's no good guys
Yeah.
anymore. That's
It's-
a great
Yeah,
quote. I can't remember the sports writer. I don't know if it was Phil Mushnick or Bob Costa. One of those two guys said that. Bob Costa.
Great.
But it's a perfect analogy of modern wrestling. It's bad guy versus voice guy.
Yeah.
You pick the personality you like best. Drew McIntyre has fans, and he's a prick.
Yeah.
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 Right?
Yeah, I like Drew.
Yeah, yeah.
But the gimmicks are not gimmicks anymore. You know what I mean? Like, like the things that were for me that would always make me laugh would be I was a big King Kong Bundy fan when I was a kid, right? And the 5 count.
Yeah.
I mean, it's genius. It's just so
Yeah.
genius. Like,
Yeah.
no, 3 is not enough. Give me 5. I mean, do you guys feel like, it's kind of weird for me to say this because I remember being a kid and you'd watch a ton of squash matches and then maybe you'd get that like match at the end that was kind of like an all right match, but not like a big match. Do you think that hurts wrestling nowadays that there's no real squash matches anymore? Like it's always
Absolutely.
like one guy that's good against one guy that's good. You don't have that. You know what I mean? Like that.
AEW bringing somebody new, and they'll give him a big. He shows up on TV, says a few words, and then beats somebody. Yay! Look who's here. Next week he'll be in a meaningless tag team match.
Yeah.
Right. There's no build. The trouble with AEW is that it assumes everybody knows who these wrestlers are when nobody knows who they are.
Totally.
Yeah.
They think that all these indie fans are going to love. How many indie fans are out there? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're
not many.
playing to a worldwide audience, so that's the problem with AEW. But in terms of WWE, I don't know. It's how they handle picking and choosing. The trouble is they're trying to keep everybody. They're all superstars. They're all supposed to be on a level playing field,
Right. And it doesn't make sense.
But anybody who's awake watching it can tell who's getting over and who isn't, or who's being pushed and who's not.
And that's been a whole thing. I mean, we have meaningless matches nonstop that are full of high spots and false finishes that don't mean anything.
But I buried the question on, and let me get back to
Yeah.
the squash matches should be essential. Back
Yes.
in my day, we'll do this again. You would bring in a heel, and he would beat a guy half a size. Then he'd beat a guy bigger. Then he'd beat a guy who has sort of a name. Then he'd beat a Dominic Duducci, who was like the second rung of good guys. And then he'd get a title shot. You would have a
Right.
build. And during that build, you would find out what his best holds were, what his
Yep.
finisher was,
Yep.
and you would have an inkling as to who he is and what he does, and whether you hate him or like him. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
You had the opportunity to see all of his skills before he took on an important match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now they just throw them in with each other, and the guy could be around in a second week and be up against a name wrestler, and you don't really know how he can do it because you've never seen him enough.
Well, there's no character development. It's exactly. There's no
No.
artist development.
Yeah.
You throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. And if it doesn't, sorry, kid.
Yeah, it don't work like that, and it's a shame too because I do remember those early. And now as a kid, I always wanted to see better matches, on like Superstars or Challenge or those shows. When you got the one match that was good at the end, you were stoked, and then you could watch prime time for the better matches. And we were lucky enough, Bob and me are for the same area. If you had cable and you had MSG, you got to watch the house shows once a month.
Yep.
So I did get to watch that.
And if you go back even farther to the late 70s, they were on HBO.
Yeah, I remember that. I didn't have cable then, but I remember hearing about that.
I did, and they were on HBO. Well, guys, this has been great. And before I go and let you talk about your podcast, I want to talk about the kismet that you guys have brought me these last 2 or 3 weeks. Kismet. You brought up the name of a fine blues guitar player, Mike Zito, when I was on your podcast.
Yeah.
Craig Peters and I worked together at Peter Bry for many years, and I saw Craig this past Friday night to see a band that he's enamored with, the Kelly Baker Band from Long Island.
Okay.
As it turns out, Kelly Baker just signed with Mike Zito's label.
Oh, there you go.
Is that weird, man?
It's so weird, but
what are the chances of this all mingling with like a week of, so you guys are good luck, and I want you guys to give me my lottery numbers for tonight so I can go make $1 million.
The Powerball number is.
Yeah, thank you, please. Yes. I couldn't do worse than I do playing those games, right?
Oh, that's so
Isn't
good.
that something that Mike Zito comes up twice in 3 days?
Yeah. He's killing it, man. We used to play small-ass casinos, and we'd go sit in with each other and playing cut heads, man. It was like, it was cool. He actually got signed. He got signed in Reno. He was playing a gig in Reno. He signed the papers for his contract in the El Dorado hotel room, which is crazy. Great guy, great voice. If you want to get into a newer blues guy that has the chops too, and he's kind of like a crossover, he can kind of do a lot. He's a guy to listen to check him out.
He obviously has an eye for talent because he just signed this lady Kelly Baker, who was like a modern day Janis Joplin.
Yeah,
real belter.
Yeah, he's definitely got an eye and ear for talent for sure.
But anyway, yes, tell us everybody about the mixtapes, what it's about. Educate them, and I want them to go listen to your show.
Yeah, sure. So Mixtapes has been around for 4 years. It was me first, and then I've known Mark forever, and Mark was a guest on the show a couple of times, and then, I went on a hiatus for a bit, and then me and Mark had lunch, and I asked him if you want to come on and co-host, and he said, yeah, and things have been great. We're a music-based podcast where we do interviews with some people some people you don't know on Tuesdays, and on Fridays we do segment shows, like a Mount Rushmore of singers, Mount Rushmore of underrated guitar players, is this album a perfect album? All these different type of things. We have guests sometimes that come on, will do that with us also, which is neat. We've been able to talk to many people that we admired and grew up listening to, which has been phenomenal. Some of our guests have been Bob Daisley, who basically co-wrote Crazy Train, Bark the Moon, played with Dio, Sabbath, a ton of people. We've had Max Cavalera from Soulfly and Sepultura. We've had Alex Skolnick, who's in Testament, TSO. We've had a lot of people. Mike Zito was on the show. We've had a lot of people, and we're just having a good time doing it. And I definitely noticed some, of your listeners checking the show out this week, which is great. And we got some new subscribers. Mark, what do you want to add about the show?
It's a good time because even if you're not into necessarily the music that we're talking about, I like to think that we're at least mildly entertaining, and you can hear us, as me especially, say stupid things and have terrible opinions, and that's a good time. And so, but I'm just really happy that we got to do this today, Bob. It's been amazing. It was super fun talking to you again, and this is a fun topic.
Oh, and I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Totally.
When I started the secondary podcast, Outdated Entertainment Hour, I was originally going to do it through Spotify. Not that I have any love loss for Spotify, but at that point, at the time when I was putting the idea together, I said they were the only place I could find that I could play music clips legally because it counted as a Spotify play. I said, great. The minute I signed up, they stopped doing that. They stopped allowing podcasters to import music into the device. So I was screwed. So now I'm talking about all these great music artists and I don't have any music clips to play because I would have to jump through so many hoops to be able to do that. So it was frustrating, but I'd love to come back on the show if you would allow me to talk about the greatest guitar player that nobody has ever heard.
Oh,
and he's been with 2 major bands, and nobody talks about him. and he's a Canadian guy. I'm not going to mention his name, but if you're ever holding your schedule, I could do a whole show on that.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. This guitar player was asked to join Steely Dan twice. He was asked to join Edgar Winter Group, and he was asked to join Alice Cooper, and he turned them all down.
Wow. That's
interesting story, and there's a lot behind this guy. So if you run that around your head, if you ever have a lull in your guest list, I would love to discuss the greatest guitar player nobody's ever heard.
I also want to say one more thing real quick too. The reason we started this podcast, or I did, and then Mark was so interested in it also, is it was a way for me to get people to listen to music more. And I think that's a big thing, especially nowadays. I listen to a lot of podcasts, but it's important. We want to talk about things that make you excited to revisit things, make you excited to find new stuff. So at the end of every episode, we recommend an album for you to listen to. And I think that's a fun little thing too, because back in the old days, you had a record store guy telling you, hey man, like you want to check this out or that, or you hear something in the record store and go, what's this? Right. Or you'd hang out with all your buddies and, what are you listening to lately and whatnot? And I think we're missing a lot of that nowadays with the internet and whatnot. So that's one thing we wanted to bring to the listeners, like, hey, you know what are you listening to today, Moots? I'm listening to this record. What are you listening to? This is my record of the week. Little things like that. I just wanted to add that.
It's a really good podcast, Mixtapes. It's a simple name to look up, Mixtapes. You can find it on all the better apps. And I'll tell you what, even if you're not into the style of music they're talking about, these are professional communicators and broadcasters, and it's really, really an honor to have you on the show. It really is.
I appreciate that, Bob. And like I said, as a weekly listener, Bob, I really appreciate being on. I'm flattered, and I know Mark is totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
I think we jogged a lot of memories here today, too, and that's what the show's all about. So
I hope so.
I appreciate it.
I hope so. Awesome. Go listen to Jive Soul Bro.
That's right.
I want to hear the original version. No, this one I want to hear anyway. Anyway, it's Mike Moots, Eric Stangeland. The podcast is Mixtapes. Pure pleasure, man. Pure pleasure.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Bob.
It.
Attention, Gen Xers. If you'd like to explore the era that appeals to you, look no further than GenerationXWire.com. The generation who grew up with elite in entertainment, music, movies, TV, books, pro wrestling, and more finally has a one-stop destination for all their Gen X needs. From Aerosmith to Batman to the Killer Bees to the Twilight Zone, there's something for everybody at GenerationXWire.com. You won't find a more eclectic mix of pop culture content than at the leading website that specializes in the greatest generation, GenerationXWire.com. Check it out today. Well, another one is in the books. Another OWH is OUT or something like that. Anyway, I want to thank Joe Puccio, our co-host, for joining in once again, as well as those Mixtapes cats. Really cool cats. I mean, their show is really good. You will be surprised. You don't have to be a fan of all these musicians to be a fan of that show. It's a wonderful podcast. It really is. I'm not saying that because they brought me on with trumpets and horns, thinking I accomplished something all those years ago. But I will say this. It's just a good show. I mean, two perfect radio voices, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of passion for what they're doing. Let's make that show a hit, huh? I think they really deserve it. They're just getting started, and I really want to see them go far with Mixtapes. That's it for now. So we have to do our usual commercial announcements. Before we leave, we are a member of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Both the Outdated Entertainment Hour and the Outdated Wrestling Hour are productions of Bob Smith Podcasts. Write to us, outdatedwrestling@gmail.com. Our website, outdatedwrestling.buzzsprout.com. All of our episodes are there, and there is a box on that website. If you click that box, you can learn how to be a member of our Outdated Wrestling Hour fan club, where for a nominal fee, as low as $3 a month, you can help perpetuate the ongoing adventures of this show and the Outdated Entertainment Hour, our secondary podcast. And it really does help, every bit of it. Seriously. You've enabled us to move into that second podcast, which is kind of like a bonus to this show. And it's a lot of the topics we take on there, I think some wrestling fans would probably like. So check out that Podcast, if you have, the Outdated Entertainment Hour with Bob Smith, it's called. I'm all over social media. I'm on Facebook, the only Bob Smith that sings with BB King. I'm starting to think making a dedicated group for the Outdated Wrestling Hour. And I'm thinking about it. It's just something to think about. Also, you can find me either as Bob Smith or outdated_Bob. Underscore is a thing, not a word. And it's it everywhere else. The Blue Skies of the world, the X's of the world, Threads, all of them. Everything I can think of that's out there. There's probably more. But that's all I can think of right now because I'm 100 years old. You know what I'm saying? As we say, I think that puts a bow on this one. Thanks to everybody on the show tonight. Thank you all for listening. And in the words of the great Ringo Starr, never gets old for me. It was so nice to see him kicking on recording the way he does and touring. You know what he says at the end of every show? Peace and love, brothers and sisters. Peace and love.